I keep hearing all of these rumblings about how Governor Gavin Newsom of California is going to run for president in 2028, and I think that that is absolutely preposterous. Not to say that I don't believe he'll try, but the whole reason that I'm making this video right now is because I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why Governor Gavin Newsom will not be elected president in 2028. And I'm going to do that right now on American Advocates. Come journey back in time with me, 14 years ago, back when he was Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, talking about a project, a pet project of, well, his, in all honesty, something he supported since he was a mayor in California, the high-speed rail.
We're all extraordinarily excited about this project. I personally have been supportive of the high-speed rail project since my time as mayor of the city and county of San Francisco. Actually, it's a bit of an understatement. This is the biggest infrastructure project in California's history, and it does something remarkable in combining grit and glamour in a way that few other things can. We're talking about sitting back comfortably, probably with a cup of coffee or tea in hand and a laptop online, while the landscape flies by us at over 200 miles an hour. We're talking about bringing the United States into the same transportation playing field as they've had for generations in Europe and Asia. I don't have to sell you on this project. I don't have to tell you what it would mean for our environment, for our economy, and for that matter, the quality of life for Californians. You know, California has always had a history of being on the leading and cutting edge. We're a visionary state. We have a history of doing things others thought were impossible.
As it would turn out, their history of doing things others thought were impossible wasn't there when it came to this high-speed rail. They did not succeed in doing it, and it's become a black hole towards the California state budget. Take a listen to the original details of this high-speed rail project.
A 520-mile high-speed rail system meant to take travelers from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Its initial $33 billion price tag, now at $77 billion, and the initial 2020 completion year pushed back to 2033.
And in just those few seconds, that video quite literally summarizes the entire problem with Governor Gavin Newsom's horrendous vision of this high-speed rail project for California. They kept pushing back the deadline for it, 2020 as the video pointed out, then 2033, bearing in mind that the concept for this high-speed rail started somewhere around like 2008. Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom in that video prior I showed you, that was in 2011. And so this project has just dragged on more and more and more, wasting more and more taxpayer dollars. So much so that back in President Donald Trump's first term, he had enough. He rescinded all funds for the project. And Gavin Newsom essentially pretty much conceded to the fact that it was going to be too expensive and take too long.
Current project, as planned, would cost too much and respectfully take too long.
Now, like any typical politician, his wording here is important. He was conceding with President Trump, pretty much, that it was too expensive, would take too long. But notice what the words were, as planned. And so what wound up happening is Governor Gavin Newsom kept getting elected as governor of California. President Donald Trump did not get elected in 2020. Who did? President Joe Biden. What wound up happening 4 years ago as a result? Take a look.
Governor Newsom says the state's high-speed rail project is getting nearly $1 billion in federal grant funding, money that the Trump administration rescinded back in 2019. The governor calls it an important step forward.
So as soon as Joe Biden becomes president, there comes thirsty Governor Gavin Newsom, who can't let this pet project go, and talks Joe Biden into backing him up with federal funding once again. And this was 4 years ago. So you would think, well, with all the federal funding that he needed finally under Joe Biden, who was stupid enough to give it to him, I'm sure that he started on the project at least. I wonder what it looks like. Well, turns out, up until about 2 months ago, Governor Gavin Newsom, at least the way he describes it here, had barely laid down any track at all for this project.
Even with that massive state budget deficit, Governor Newsom is doubling down tonight on California's high-speed rail project. He aims to guarantee spending at least $1 billion per year for the project going forward. Despite Californians voting for the project in 2008, it has long faced criticism, especially from Republicans. That's because the timeline for completion of high-speed rail has been delayed by more than a decade, and it's costing tens of billions of dollars more than expected. Yet, the governor says he wants it done.
We weren't able to even put an inch, let alone a mile of track down over the course of the last 15 or so years. They're laying tracks to get to where they start to lay the tracks. It's a technical way of actually doing the development in phases.
They hadn't laid any tracks down. This was 2 months ago, and they didn't even lay tracks down. What the hell was going on? This guy wants to run for president. And so what wound up happening with this, the closure that you're all going to want to know, President Donald Trump literally yesterday got wind of this project again going on and cut the federal funding once more, rescinding all federal funding to Gavin Newsom's high-speed rail project for the second time.
We have some breaking news. Just in moments ago, President Trump saying that he is ending government funding for California's high-speed rail project. The president says the rail that was promised does not exist and never will. The bullet train was supposed to connect L.A. to the Bay Area. It was originally expected to cost $33 billion, but now estimates range between $89 billion and $128 billion. Governor Newsom responded, saying California is putting all options on the table to fight this legal action.
This is how liberals move, and this is what you get when you vote them into office. But I'm going to move on. I'm going to show other reasons here why Governor Newsom will not be the president in 2028. And I'm going to hinge off this high-speed rail project straight to California's absolute crazy budget deficit crisis. This article came in about 2 months ago. Governor Gavin Newsom blames Trump, of course, for $12 billion California budget deficit. The article goes on to state, Governor Gavin Newsom on Wednesday announced his revised $332 billion state spending proposal, revealing that California is facing a $12 billion budget deficit. I also want to put out there that this is a huge reason why California under Gavin Newsom was in a budget deficit. This occurred back in January of 2024, Governor Gavin Newsom extends free health care to 700,000 illegal immigrants despite record budget deficit. But you know what? It gets even worse for a multitude of reasons.
At least 24 people are believed to be dead, and more than a dozen others remain unaccounted for. More than 12,000 structures believed damaged or destroyed, more than 60 square miles burned, more than 100,000 under evacuation orders. This as residents return to see their homes reduced to rubble.
The Los Angeles fires. And of course, I could make a whole video about how Karen Bass, mayor of LA, was an absolute moron during this period of time as well. But Gavin Newsom is largely to blame for this disaster. President Donald Trump blamed Governor Gavin Newsom, likely rightly so it seems, for cutting funding to several key resources in his state when it comes to fire management. This is a fact check on Donald Trump's statement about Gavin Newsom. Did Gavin Newsom cut $100 million in fire prevention funding? Online posts citing a January 10 Newsweek article claim Newsom cut $101 million in fire prevention funding. Is it true? The article goes on to say, Newsom said it was a ridiculous lie that he cut $100 million, a retort he included on his new website, California Fire Facts. But the website didn't dissect the $100 million. It focused on the big picture of the budget during his tenure, asserting that the budget had grown for California's Fire Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, CAL FIRE. Newsom is right that the budget has increased, but it's also not a lie that money, actually more than $100 million, was cut. And here's how liberals work with their relationship to the truth. Following 2023 and 2024 budget deficits, the state shaved that amount by $191 million, $47 million in 2023 and $144 million in 2024. The budget deficit was tens of billions of dollars. Poor management of his state by Governor Gavin Newsom. I wonder if that high-speed rail project played a part in this. Or perhaps it was giving free health care to 700,000 illegal immigrants in your state. Newsweek's story cited an analysis by the state's Legislative Analysis Office, a nonpartisan office that works for the state assembly, that it said showed the $101 million cut. The proposal included $101 million in reductions to the wildfire and forest resilience funding. The adopted budget spending plan reduced that plan multi-year one-time wildfire-related funding by $144 million. And so what's happening here in typical liberal fashion is that over time, like with anything, technology gets more expensive. Everything gets more expensive. You have to pay firefighters more. Their technology costs more money as it improves. The cost of living goes up. The budget, therefore, has to go up, and it does. From 10 years ago to now, CAL FIRE's budget has increased. So Governor Gavin Newsom was citing that in his defense to try to skirt around the truth of the fact that he cut their budget last year by $144 million, which left them ill-equipped and unprepared to fight the devastating South California, Los Angeles fires. But it honestly gets even worse than that, especially from a PR perspective. While those LA fires were going on and being fought by firefighters who had just undergone a $144 million budget cut by their own governor, he was busy setting up a podcast. This is what he was up to while his cities were on fire.
We need to change the conversation. And that's why I'm launching a new podcast. And this is going to be anything but the ordinary politician podcast. I'm going to be talking to people directly that I disagree with, as well as people I look up to. But more important than anything else, I'll be talking directly with you, the listener. Real conversations. What's going on with the cost of eggs? What are the impacts, real impacts to you around tariffs? What power does an executive order really have? And what's really going on inside of Doge? Look, there's an onslaught of information that we take in. So let's take it to the sources without the typical political mumbo jumbo. In the first few weeks, we're going to be sitting down with some of the biggest leaders and architects in the MAGA movement. This is Gavin Newsom.
This is Gavin Newsom. He dedicates billions of dollars to 700,000 illegal immigrants in his state for free health care. He wastes years of time and billions of dollars on a high-speed rail project, and he defunds firefighters at crucial moments when they need equipment and funding to battle predictable yearly forest fires. And it continues to get even worse than that, I promise you. The final reason why Governor Gavin Newsom will not be elected president in 2028, the LA riots. This is what it looks like to live in a city that's been controlled by liberals and Democrats for decades.
Oh, shit. What the fuck?
Again, Governor Gavin Newsom's poor leadership resulted in this getting out of hand, like what we're seeing in this footage here, and in so much more footage I've covered on this channel. He refused to admit that they were violent riots, and instead kept referring to them, alongside again Mayor Karen Bass, as peaceful protests. As a result, he refused to take control of the situation. He refused to do what was necessary, aka calling in, truthfully, the California National Guard to back up the LAPD, who were completely overwhelmed by the circumstance, as thousands of Mexicans took to the street in the form of nearly an insurrection. Cars were being set on fire, buildings were being looted, violence was occurring, assaults were happening in the street. And then he had the nerve to get mad at President Donald Trump for seizing control of the National Guard and starting to clean up his own state. At one point, literally cracking under pressure and daring Tom Homan and President Donald Trump to arrest him.
Is firing back after the president's border czar threatened to arrest him.
Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy.
Tom Homan warned Newsom and LA's Mayor Karen Bass if they stand in the way of ICE raids, they'll be placed in cuffs.
Are you saying that about Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom? Are they at risk of being arrested?
I'll say it about anybody. You cross that line, it's a felony to knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien. It's a felony to impede law enforcement from doing their job.
President Trump seems to think it's a great idea.
Gavin Newsom, he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing.
Governor Newsom blames the president for the chaos in LA, saying he's fanning the flames by sending in the National Guard. And he's also lashing out at Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth for threatening to deploy the Marines.
Pete Hegseth's a joke. He's a joke. Everybody knows it. So in over his head. What an embarrassment.
Trump is responding on social media. We made a great decision in sending the National Guard. If we had not done so, Los Angeles would have been completely obliterated.
What a baby. What a toddler. What a man-child. Literally lashing out at the people trying to save his state. Mind you, he wound up suing President Donald Trump over seizing control of the National Guard. And he wound up suing to get control back of the National Guard, all so that he could pull them out of his state and have them withdraw from quelling these riots. That's how much of a ridiculous, delusional, liberal politician Gavin Newsom is. And now, most recently yesterday, he's out there speaking again because now that the National Guard got things under control, President Donald Trump has been deploying ICE agents to go raid towns and cities in California to round up as many of the illegal Mexican immigrants as possible in there, to deport them, to avoid scenarios like the LA riots from happening again.
That communities like Bell and Downey are being torn apart.
Standing at the podium outside behind Downey Memorial Christian Church, Governor Gavin Newsom choosing this very spot because he says this is where an undocumented woman was taken into custody just a few weeks ago by federal agents.
6 folks came masked without any identification, unmarked cars, and came into the parking lot demanding she get out of the way.
The governor also saying he recently met with local business owners in the nearby city of Bell. He says he met with one restaurant owner in business for 20 years. They have now lost 80% of their business and a sense of community.
They have a 15-year employee. He won't even show up to work. He's here with documentation, but he's scared to death. He hasn't shown up in weeks since 4 raids occurred nearby. He won't even show up because he's scared to death of being pulled over for simple reason because of the way he looks.
First of all, give this video a like if this is what you like to see. If you voted for this right here, give this video a like right now and subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this. But honestly, to summarize all of this, Governor Gavin Newsom, a guy who has decades of failed projects, the high-speed rail project, a state budget black hole that's done nothing, literally progressed nowhere, cost the state a fortune, and has nothing to show for it. Then goes and extends free health care to illegal immigrants in his state. How he got away with that, I don't know. Costing the state, furthermore, billions of dollars, to the point of where the state is in a budget deficit now for 3 years in a row. Goes and creates a podcast while cities are burning, and then refuses to take control over his cities when Mexican rioters and insurrectionists are burning California streets to the ground. This guy wants to run for president in 2028, and these were all of the reasons why he will surely not be elected president of the United States, probably ever.